U.S. President Trump putting the Monroe Doctrine into action, urging Latin American leaders to combat cartels and narco-terrorists, while signaling regime change is on the way in Cuba.
There you go.
We're also looking forward to the great change that will soon be coming to Cuba. Cuba's at the end of the line. They have no money, they have no oil, they have a bad philosophy. I'll take care of it, okay?
Remember, just 2 weeks ago, there was a fishing boat that was blown apart by the Cuban Navy, right? And they were Americans that came from the Keys, somewhere around Key West. And we were told that they were just fishermen that got off course. No way. Those were American assets. I did a video on that, and I'll put a link up to it up above. And it was clear that we were seeding assets into country because, you know, the distraction, and it was a big one that we had in between with the Iranian war. Well, just before that, there was some activity that nobody caught, and that was happening in Cuba. So now you see the Monroe Doctrine is moving from Panama. You can see that originally right in the beginning of his second term. He kicked China out of Panama and took control of the Panama Canal. Then he moved to Venezuela, and then he did have Cuba on his list, but obviously got distracted by the war in Iran. So listen further, though, because you're going to see that it won't take long for Trump to get some regime change going on Cuba. You're next.
So, and as these situations in Venezuela and Cuba should make clear under our new doctrine, and it is a doctrine, we will not allow hostile foreign influence to gain a foothold.
So, GOP Senator Bill Haggerty sits on Foreign Relations Committee and joins us now. Senator, titanic change. It really began with the Panama Canal, forcing them to get rid of China's ownership at the open and on both ends of it. But that was just the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're exactly right, Brian. It is just the beginning, but we're seeing a sea change in all of Latin America. If you look at the national defense strategy, if you look at our national security strategy, the emphasis on Latin America has been enormous. Marco Rubio was formerly my colleague in the United States Senate on the Foreign Relations Committee. He understands this area very well, and as our Secretary of State is doing an outstanding job. And we're seeing a tremendous reinvigoration of our relationships in Latin America. China has been, as you know, particularly under the last administration, very aggressive in terms of moving into the area. Now America is showing back up economically, strategically, and working together militarily to deal with some of the greatest threats that we've got in that region.
I don't know if you saw that, but one of the pictures that they were showing there while the senator was talking was where Donald Trump, just this last weekend, got 12 of the nation's leaders from 12 various nations across South America into Miami at his resort in Doral. And that what they're basically trying to do, and you get little squeaks of this coming out of a news story, but again, it gets buried, is what Donald Trump is doing is he's using our national assets along with their country's assets to target cartels. And this is, 12 of the more friendly countries. You didn't see Brazil and others there. You saw some of the smaller countries that, again, we have good relationships with. But this is, again, part of that Monroe Doctrine. So what is that? Monroe Doctrine is not what's going on in Iran. That's a separate issue. And that's an issue that we've talked about before, and we're going to continue talking about. The Monroe Doctrine is about owning your hemisphere and having strategic military, economic, and national security relationships and owning them in your hemisphere. That's also why Donald Trump, and you haven't heard it a lot, wants control of Greenland for the same reasons that, on a smaller scale, Cuba, we obviously just don't want Putin and others there like they've been. So, let's not be naive. This is a little less to do with the citizens of Cuba and a whole lot to do with the regime change and getting control of that country so that both China and specifically with Cuba, they don't have access to that anymore. It's way too close to our country. That was similar to what was going on in Venezuela. Venezuela was about controlling oil, dirty oil in Venezuela's case, that was making its way over to Russia and over to China. And then the Panama Canal, that was a no-brainer. He was very clear and very quick to act early in his second term. in getting control of both points and getting control of the trade that's going through that. So it's a national security issue and a trade issue for that Panama Canal. But where we're going next, this is where you're going to watch, because it's going to happen quick. There's nothing that's holding this back. And at this point, again, remember how I opened up this video. Just 2 weeks ago, there were assets, American assets, not lost fishermen, that were getting access to Cuba, gaining control of their shore and getting in there. And we've had assets in Cuba, if we're going to be fair and honest, for decades. And now we're just kind of beefing up this attempt because, again, Cuba is next. And what Donald Trump is going to do, and you can mark my word on this, this is how he negotiates. He's going to try to do it friendly. He's going to ease some economic restrictions and try to get the diplomats to get access and to be able to get some diplomacy there. If Cuba's regime rejects that, all holy hell will break out on them, and it won't take long.
Little by little, big countries and small. Guyana, which is awash in oil, has no defense. We've watched their back. Venezuela is threatening to take that country, and now Venezuela is now in the firm hands of Delcy Rodriguez. Then El Salvador, we watched them crack down and aid us when it comes to illegal immigrants. Dominican Republic, obviously. Honduras has flipped governments. Bolivia has flipped governments more friendly to us. And now we have a situation where Mexico is cracking down on their cartels, and we saw Ecuador doing the same thing. Have we felt it here at home yet? Is there less drugs coming across now because of what's happening to our south?
The answer is yes. And the key element of all of this is President Trump's immediate move once he took office to secure our southern border. That was actually the fundamental requirement to be able to deal with the rest of Latin America, to stop the economic flow, to stop the drug flow, to stop the flow in human trafficking that has been feeding these cartels and these illicit narco-terrorists. Once that was secure, we've been able now to step.
And incidentally, this B-roll that you see playing here, this was, again, a story that you probably didn't hear about. But we were very active with our military assets in Ecuador just this last week. And here we're blowing up some cartel drug activity. And again, remember, just before the event with the lost fishermen, well, what did we have just before that? We had Donald Trump with the DEA and some other military assets targeting the largest drug cartel that's responsible for bringing fentanyl in Mexico across our border. We just went in and blew them up. So this has been a consistent theme of trying to get access into country with some of these friendly countries to be able to control drugs that are going on and ultimately to be able to get better strategic relationships and some economic ownership over really what was part of the central and southern aspects of the Americas, where we just kind of ignored them, right? Joe Biden was totally not interested in getting them to stay in country and to build strategic relationships. He wanted them in our country. That was his whole open borders policy. The Monroe Doctrine is completely different.
In and take strategic and economic moves that are totally changing the face of Latin America, and again, moving Latin America back where it should be, into our corner.
So let's focus on Cuba if we can. The president says it's about to fall. We cut off Mexico's oil deliveries there. They at least said they stopped. We also, obviously, Venezuela no longer delivering free oil to them. And that has allowed their influence to wane. That little island nation had influenced the entire area with their communist principles and some of the extortion backed up by Russia, backed up by China. So this ripple effect could bring down Cuba, something that even John F. Kennedy couldn't do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, you heard President Trump mention that he's not going to allow these entities to have a foothold in our region. And you just mentioned it, China, Russia, even North Korea has a very large embassy in Cuba. China was setting up intel operations under the Biden administration in Cuba. Russia, we know the relationship there has gone back, as you said, all the way to John F. Kennedy. We have been dealing with this 90 miles off of our shore. My understanding is that Secretary Rubio has had discussions with Raulito Castro. That's the grandson of Raul Castro. I don't think they'd be talking unless they're looking at some significant change. And we need to see the change for the better in this region. Again, that foothold, I think, is going to disappear thanks to President Trump's aggressive and bold actions.
I agree.
They're going to have to make a choice. Do they want to end up in a Brooklyn jail, or do they want to go someplace of their choosing? It depends on the type of...
What Brian's getting at here, and again, probably missed this. Just over the weekend, Donald Trump ordered the Department of Justice to start their paperwork and get their process going on the despots, right? The whole Castro regime. Now it's down to the grandson. But to be able to get on paper federal indictments, to be able to allow them to do the same thing that we did in Venezuela with Maduro. This action is now well underway. So what you again see is the diplomats going in ahead of the paperwork from the Department of Justice to try to get them to acquiesce and do this the easy way. If that doesn't work, you're going to see federal indictments heading straight down and identifying a number of the elements of the government officials in Cuba. At that point, it's game on. Monroe Doctrine 2.0 is going to go in and do, again, what they did in Venezuela. And we saw the might and the creativity and the decisiveness of the American military and how quickly they were able to go in, get Maduro, and get back out. And as Brian's saying, right, Raulito, the grandson of Castro, he has a choice to make. You either acquiesce to what Rubio's trying to get him to do, and we'll throw you some economic fun, or we're going to put you in a jail for the rest of your life in New York City, and you're not going to have a whole lot to say about it.
Landing they prefer, and I think the president's already demonstrated when you look at Iran and Venezuela, he's not kidding.
Brian, you couldn't have said it any better. That's precisely the choice I think that people are facing, and they see that President Trump is serious. And the prosecution that's going to take place in the Southern District of New York, that is very serious indeed with respect to Maduro. It sends a strong message to all of these narco-terrorists that this administration means business, that the United States is back.
Are you comfortable with the evolution of Venezuela, with Delcy Rodriguez still in charge? A lot of people feel as though she can't be trusted, but so far the president has faith in her. Are you thinking they're still on the road to an election in 6 months down the line? Are you happy the way things are right now?
Well, that's certainly the conversation that's going on, that we're moving in the right direction. Rodriguez is cooperating with us. Secretary Rubio is very much on top of the situation. I think is confident that it's moving in the right direction. I have eminent faith in his viewpoint on this. So I think we are moving in the right direction and toward a position where Venezuela can be great again. It was once a thriving economy. The socialist leftist regimes have destroyed that. We're going to help bring it back. They have natural resources that are meaningful, not only to that country, but also to the region. We're seeing, again, the impacts, as you mentioned earlier, Brian, on Mexico by choking off the free oil that had been going in that direction. I'm sorry, not Mexico, but Cuba. So I think it's going to have a profound effect. The reconstruction of Venezuela is going to have a profound effect on the region.
And revenue starting to...
I agree completely. And again, the name that's going to keep coming up is Marco Rubio. Keep in mind, right, he has Cuban nationality in his heritage, right? He's the second generation or first, right? His father was just off the boat, and grandfather, if you know his story, was stuck in country in Cuba for a long time. So again, Rubio has a bone to pick with this organization specific to Cuba, and then translating over to Venezuela. They're not that far. It's just about 180 miles from Cuba. Now you're in Venezuela. So Rubio is leading the charge in trying to stabilize Venezuela and ultimately open that government up to a democratic vote. That's what Delcy Rodriguez is wrestling with at the moment. She doesn't want to give up power, and there's a whole lot of horse trading that's going on, because ultimately what Marco Rubio wants, what Donald Trump wants, is to have a free and fair election in Venezuela and have them re-elect Delcy if that's what they want. Or I would be, more favoring probably a different candidate, is who the people of Venezuela want, as long as they get a free and fair election, which they never had under Maduro. We all know that. Again, translating back or transitioning back to Cuba, that's the same objective. It's not that we want to take control like in Greenland. This is about making sure that we have diplomatic relationships and representative governments that aren't despots in some of the closest asset nations and strategic nations in the Southern Hemisphere. That's where Cuba's coming into play. Do you agree? Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments down below. And if you've yet to subscribe to America First Alerts, please do so. We'd love to have you along for the ride. We'll see you in the next story.
We won!
Okay, let's go.
We won!